I think what districts really need to keep in mind when it comes to policies regarding, planning and homework and all of those things is every time that you mandate something across the board, it really limits the autonomy of your staff. And when you limit the autonomy of your staff, it makes them feel like they have to look over their shoulder all the time.
When you limit the autonomy of staff, it makes them feel like they have to look over their shoulder. I'm Mark Barnes, and this is another edition of the Hack Learning Podcast. And you just heard from Joe Sanfelippo, a school superintendent in Wisconsin and co-author of the forthcoming Hacking Leadership. And Joe is talking about how limiting staff and taking away any autonomy that your teachers have, or if you were in a workplace outside of school, just not providing autonomy for people who work for you, that you create this sort of negative culture. And Joe and co-author Tony Sinanis, a school principal in Hacking Leadership, they talk a lot about building a culture and sort of leading from the middle. And the idea that when you hire people, if you do a good job of that and you hire people up front with the idea that they can do the job, that you don't need to hover over them. We're hacking school or workplace culture today. And the idea comes from a conversation I had on Twitter where someone had listened to a prior Hack Learning podcast about homework. And that turned into a blog post, which you could find at hacklearning.org, about the 6 ridiculous reasons that teachers assign homework. And some of this school culture and autonomy is built into that. It's the idea that teachers are often told they have to assign homework. And this is what the person on Twitter said, who was responding to this post and tweeted at me that she loved the idea, but that she had to assign homework because the principal mandated this, or maybe it was district policy coming even from the superintendent, that teachers had to put this in their lesson plans and they had to grade the homework, and they didn't like it, and they felt like they had no choice in what they were doing in the classroom, not to mention the fact that, going back to the hacking homework episode, the idea of mandating homework and grading homework really inhibits learning. So let's think about the idea of mandating lesson plans and homework and mandating grades and what this does to that school culture. Let's listen a little bit more to Joe Sanfelippo.
One of the first things that we did when I got to Fall Creek was, everybody used to have to turn in their lesson plans. And first thing I did was to say, I trust you. We hired you to do a job. Do your job. I don't need to check on you doing your job. If I do, then we have a bigger problem than you turning in your lesson plans, because you could essentially turn in anything that you want to me. And I don't know for sure if you're doing it or not if I'm not there every second of every day. So I trust you to do your job. Do your job. Do it to the best of your ability. If you need help, a time, resource, whatever, just let me know and we'll get it for you. It was really more about giving them the autonomy to go and dive in and dig deep and fail and, recreate and all of those things that makes teaching awesome, like trying new stuff and seeing kids get excited. And there's not a lot of kids that get excited about turning in a worksheet. So why are we grading every piece of paper that comes back into school?
So Joe says a lot of things there about autonomy and about creating this workplace where teachers or staff want to be a part of it because they feel like they can go in and do their job, a job they were hired to do, without someone standing behind them and looking over their shoulders and saying, no, you can't do that, or I want to make sure you're doing this a certain way. We all want autonomy. Joe also talks about the idea of assigning homework like worksheets, which we typically do, and the ongoing grades. Why do we grade everything, he says? It's not fun. And it also then sends this message about autonomy to kids, that we're taking that away by controlling you with this idea that you have to do what we tell you to do every night. It's in the lesson plan. And then we're going to grade it. And if you don't do it right, you're going to be punished. If you don't do it at all, you're going to receive a 0. So there's a whole negative vibe here. And when I was in this Twitter chat, and the person said to me, we have to do this, and this came straight from a superintendent, I was really frustrated by this. And one of the nice things about having your own podcast is you can vent a little bit. And we do that at Hack Learning sometimes. We try to give you solutions to the problems, but sometimes a little venting comes with that. My solution, the hack for this idea of hacking the culture of school and the culture of the workplace would be, first of all, a challenge. I would challenge school leaders and workplace leaders to give autonomy to the people that you've hired. And if you can't give them that autonomy, I would ask you, why did you hire them in the first place? But if you're stuck in this old school, that's the way we've always done it mentality, that we give homework, that we show it on a lesson plan, that we have to grade it, I would challenge you to rethink that, first of all, because we're in a different world now, whether it's in school or in any other workplace. We're in an amazing world with unbelievable digital resources, with skills that we can give to our staff to go out and to do jobs in amazing ways. Teachers can decide. They can make decisions about what should be done in the classroom and what should go into a lesson plan, or, in fact, should there be a lesson plan at all? John Bennett, a professor emeritus in Connecticut, has an idea about lesson plans, and this goes into the autonomy thing as well. He suggests that having strict mandates about lesson plans, not even a lesson plan that contains homework, but just lesson plans in general, can also contribute to this negative culture and can inhibit learning. Let's listen to what John Bennett says.
The notion of a lesson plan is really a bad idea, and would point out that in addition to all of that, there's absolutely no reason for having grades, having textbooks, or having regular homework in the sense of what we're trying to do with regard to students' learning.
So John says, and this is a very experienced educator with decades of work in education, trying new things and failing and then going back and getting better. And he says when we have the lesson plan and we have the mandated homework and the grades, we take away autonomy and we often inhibit learning. John says that things change in the classroom. And in our conversation, he told me that oftentimes teachers run into students with different needs. He said if you have a stock lesson plan and it's something that is supposed to be for every individual in a classroom of maybe 25 or 30 people, he said that really is going to be ineffective, because you're going to run into kids who have different needs and your stock lesson plan won't work for them. So John, a very progressive-minded educator, goes one more step and says instead of mandating homework and grades on a lesson plan, we might want to consider even eliminating the lesson plan. And go back to what Superintendent Joe Sanfelippo says, when we take all of these things and we remove a lot of the mandates and the homework and the grades and maybe even the lesson plan, we create an environment and a culture of autonomy where we're telling our teachers and our staffers, people we've hired, we're saying, we trust you to do the job. And that is what we need to do. So the hack for school or workplace culture, your quick fix, is really a challenge to school leaders, to workplace leaders, to superintendents, to principals, supervisors, anyone who has people who work for them. The challenge is rethink old school, rethink control, and consider what will happen in your classrooms, in your workplace, if you give autonomy to people that you have given trust to do a job. And if you're unwilling to do that, you might ask yourself, why did I hire this person in the first place? Because it just seems that maybe you want to do the job yourself. And I know in schools, we often have this issue with the school leaders taking away autonomy and going more with control and mandates and turning the environment into this sort of bureaucracy. that no one wants to be a part of. And that creates a negative culture instead of the kind that Joe Sanfelippo and Tony Sinanis write about in Hacking Leadership, that we want to lead more from the middle and listen to people around us and give them autonomy and say, I selected you to do a job, and I expect that you'll do it. We continue the conversation about school and workplace culture on hashtag Hack Learning on Twitter, on the Hack Learning Facebook page, and at hacklearning.org. Remember, you can check out all of the episodes of the podcast at hacklearningpodcast.com. You can download the app in the App Store. And the Hack Learning Podcast is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Lots of incredible education podcast episodes there. Check it out. Today, it's linked on our podcast page at hacklearningpodcast.com. Thanks for joining. See you next time.